Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, okay, hi. Apologies, I just couldn't see. I'm just being honest, I just couldn't see. You know, the difference is with me, I like to, speak in front of the camera and not hide behind a mask when I do my videos, so I can directly see into people's eyes, technically speaking, but also show my face if I do mess up at times, okay? And in today's video, what we're actually doing is, we could arguably call it a psychological analysis. Not exactly body language, more actual text-based language and the change and development of a human, okay? And that's to do with Mr. X from the Jim Terry channel, okay? There's two guys, you got Jim Terry, you got Mr. X, okay? We can get more into that in a second, okay? Witness it from last night, all can be explained, all is under control, okay? So, welcome if you're currently here in the live chat. This will be a Dylan Rounds related discussion, maybe throughout and also later on as we try and take a look at one of the forums, okay? Apologies, I would have got this video done a bit sooner or a bit earlier, a bit more efficient, but unfortunately, due to human distractions externally in real life from pathetic excuses of people out there, I wasn't able to do so, but now here is the time, okay? So you could argue there's been a burst of information or supposed information and developments that have gone on within the Dylan Rounds case, just very recent. I've not looked at Lance yet, but I will try to. I'm just trying to get through it all, okay? If you haven't already, make sure to check out my earlier video today, which was up to date, the latest video footage of the weather conditions and the situation in Montello, right? Credit to one of the individuals that allowed me to use and share the footage with you. So make sure to click on that link afterwards so you can see it visually, okay? And, you know, it does provide a better depth of field too, because whilst I've seen Lance's videos, you know, from certain angles, but the way this footage is portrayed within Montello is almost like a panoramic all the way around, so you get a good sense, and the mountains in the distance. When I saw it probably for the first time, I was able to say, hey, I've seen that before, because of studying the maps, you know, being able to map it all out and think, okay, I get an idea of this, which is a positive. So make sure to check that out afterwards. So aside from this burst of information and developments within the case, it's also come with drama, which isn't a surprise. Does it need to be covered? Not entirely, but this specific piece today needs to be, to clear things up and to keep things, you know, straight, and to monitor, to observe,
to document changes in people's behaviour, whether it be as a character portrayed or their real life self. It will be documented as we go along. I'm following the same procedures, the same methods, the same observations, critiques and positive points made when highlighting key individuals within a particular case. I did it with Kenny Veach, okay? Regardless of how it went, regardless of the backlash, it was necessary. The same will happen here if need be within the Dylan Browns community, okay? So I think to put one thing straight, I have predicted things with time, my own predictions, the structure of the case, the format, how things play out, what happens next. Not everything, but some of the stuff. And it's been somewhat accurate too. People have noticed and witnessed it as well. And recently, I was saying how, whilst things might develop, right, you're going to get resistance. If I am consistent with coverage of the case and keeping it alive, even if it's just for that sole purpose, just so it doesn't die away if other people do move on, like channel-wise, it's going to lead to some people coming on in who might get frustrated, annoyed, whether it be because of the coverage, the style, not hitting on key points, but that's because one simply doesn't know it, but at least you're in indirect response with them revealing it down the line, right? All different kinds of stuff. You know, arguably it happened last night with Mr. X. Now, we just put Mr. X to the side. There has been other external drama going on with different communities. Supposedly, you had Bella V, her channel, her live stream, her community, battling it out supposedly with Jim Terry, Mr. X and their community, and then battling it out with Salty Pancakes, their live stream, their community, all going on all at once, right? One of those things, you know? Am I from the US? No. Time zones, different, yes. It may prevent certain things, yes, oh well. But, you know, what's a positive? No toxic, competitions of timing, of streams. It's just done like that. If people want to watch, they can watch, appreciate it. It's good of them. If they need to move away or go off and do stuff, fine, that's understandable. Elsewhere though, it's all about who's in pole position, right? And that's where it drifts and shifts away from focus specifically on the Dylan Browns case. So whilst maybe the structure of some of these videos or the odd or parts of humour within which is carefully and appropriately spaced out and ordered could be criticised by external forces, you know, got to reflect back and say, well, you know, look at all the other stuff going on, all the other tension, unnecessary focuses and distractions and forces happening, right? So yes, you do have these different channels and communities which may have branched out with time. At the end of the day, whether the drama is directly aimed within the Dylan Browns case or not, all these people existed and originated from the Dylan Browns case in terms of making a presence and a platform known there, okay? When it comes more to me, okay? Kenny Veach, that's where the channel suddenly grew. I acknowledge that. I always refer back to it because if I didn't cover it, I'd still be a no one. That's being realistic. That's being straight to the point, okay? And yes, I will try my best to return back to Kenny Veach, right? In the meantime, aside from resistance, aside from witch hunting, which you shouldn't do, okay, because it's under control at the moment. As for Sean Horlacker, one of the original M-Cave searchers and explorers looking for Kenny Veach, covering it back in 2015, feel free to check his channel out. His channel name's called Sean Space Karna, something like that, Sean Karna, okay? And he's been uploading more videos recently covering the case. So feel free to do that in between, right? So you had like some drama with Bella V or something to do with Stoney, something to do with Pancakes, something to do with someone else, hearing in, things being said, some people getting drunk and stuff. I mean, sometimes when you like popped your head in with, I guess, Bella V's call-in chat panel, whatever you call it, you know, just listening briefly. I don't know if it's some kind of lesbian meeting group or not. That could explain why Ashley and Maria skipped away early on last night in the live premiere. I guess it's just one of those things, but shout out to Stoney, who remained, you know, rock solid as a stone in the community. I don't know what I'm saying there. It's just play on words, okay? So there is external stuff going on right now, drama, back and forth. Some of it could be quite serious. Maybe secrets have been revealed accidentally because of one getting drunk or so, but I'm not covering that here. I'm covering my own experiences and encounters, okay? So hopefully that sets the intro straight, first of all. Some people will be joining in a bit later, so I'm just trying to organise this appropriately. As for last night, there was, you know, a small amount of people present at the beginning, and then the numbers increased, but that's just simply because of Pancake's live stream ending at a certain time, which is understandable. Stoney popping in, as well as some others, Campos Tacos, Hola, you know, those individuals. But it was the timing when Pancake's stream ended and then the other people started coming in. Obviously, there's higher chances of possible resistance, like how Linda would say. You know, Linda has been around on my channel for a bit, so appreciate them. And around that time, what I was saying, where the people started coming in, that's when Mr. X showed his presence, okay? So I think what I'm gonna do very shortly is show you the screenshots of what he had to say, okay? He had a bit of a meltdown. He arguably lost control. He was very whiny, okay? More whiny than ever, and a big contrast and change in behaviour to what we've previously seen, or at least from what I've encountered, okay? And we can analyse each one. I can respond back as we go along, okay? So just bear with me. What I want to do first of all is provide just a very brief backstory behind Mr. X, okay? So Mr. X, you've seen like the Mr. X from wish.com, which is just like a knockoff, okay? The real Mr. X, you know, you've seen him with the, I guess, glasses, shades, whatever, underpants on his head, or cloth, I don't know, and like a cowboy hat and a trench coat, okay, trying to look mysterious, unknown. That's his character, his personality, his behaviour, his presence, his atmosphere, all of that. It's all in one. It makes him who he is. It may complement with Jim Terry from, you know, First Time Impressions. Jim Terry is kind of like straight to the point, might criticise you, might treat you kind of negatively, but, you know, he welcomes it back. That's just him, okay? Understand that. You know, I have arguably spoken positive of Jim Terry to an extent at times, okay? Equally with Mr. X. Mr. X seems, from what was previously documented, as a little bit more reserved in a way compared to Jim Terry. I guess like in how he speaks, bit more respectful, bit more understanding, maybe a little bit more caring, okay? So there was a contrast between the two individuals, but it complemented one another, right? Though maybe with time it's kind of shifted and it's become more one-sided, possibly, okay? Now really, the only Mr. X I've ever heard of was Mr. X from Resident Evil, the big tall guy, well built, with a mask hat. Maybe that's what Mr. X from Jim Terry TV is impersonating, basically copying from a Resident Evil game. Now, I've not played Resident Evil, but I do feel it's an overrated game. Maybe at times certain female gamers might get very bitchy, moany about that and defensive, but I'm being straight to the point, okay, just my opinion. And also, I've been gaming since the age of 4, even till now, 22, so I have extensive experience when it comes to gaming, okay? I've witnessed and seen extensive patterns, predicted a lot of stuff, okay? So at least just in that regards, I know exactly what I'm talking about, but we're not focused on that in this video, at least, okay? So let's just put that aside. So previously, Mr. X, like a side buddy, you know, like how Robin is to Batman, right? I guess that's how it is. I think that's I guess that's just like enough backstory for you to really understand about Mr. X, like how he's the contrast of Jim, and he's, you know, appears on the side. I mean, the only other addition to throw in is that with Mr. X, you know, people throwing names about in the hat and YouTube channels of previous people, which is basically the brother of Jim Terry. You know, I can't remember his name though, something Terry. So the brother, Mr. X, is supposedly the brother of Jim Terry. That's what other people have said, provided links as well of him before and after, the mask, unmasked. I'm not going to show clips, footage, pictures, because then that'll just be ammunition and then be aimed back at me. You know, I'm just suggesting which has been relayed, right? That's all. Let's get into the YouTube comments now, and let me share with you the change, the meltdown within Mr. X. Kind of similar to salty pancakes, okay?
So here we are on screen. This is the live chat replay from last night's video premiere, live, okay? So as you see, you've got Jim Terry TV2 there. We will read the comment in a second, okay? We will analyse as we go through, don't you worry. Just want to confirm that by going on to this channel. It's by the Jim Terry TV with Mr. X, as you can see by the subscribers, the shorts there, okay, the lives, okay, you see, it's all him, just so you know. Well, not there's the description too, okay, joined 17th of August 2022. I just want to do this with you so you know for sure, because, you know, some people were quite taken back when Pancakes had his first meltdown on my channel at the time. Some people were like, oh my God, it's really him, okay? So I just wanted to confirm it with you, because I am aware that you as the viewer, when in the live chat replay, you can't click on people's profiles like how the channel owner can, right? So I just wanted to share it with you first to validate and confirm it is the Mr. X, okay? So Mr. X makes his first appearance with the first comment saying lots of questions of why. Why this or why that? Why don't you call Jim Terry or Ty Corbin when they are live several times a week? Well, firstly, Ty Corbin technically isn't going live himself. He's appearing on one of your channels, right? So let's just word that correctly. Secondly, time zone difference. There is clearly a 6-7+ hour time zone difference. So practically, it's not practical, okay? And I'd say the other key point to make note of is at times, Ty Corbin makes an appearance in my videos. He clears up the odd question, clears up the odd point or possible bit of misinformation, or if it's been wrongly worded, he makes sure of it, makes it clear, and it's resolved. It's as simple as that, Mr. X. It's all under control, okay?
In addition, Mr. X, when it comes to analysing whether it be material or arguably more to do with text and information talked about in the likes of Jim Terry's live streams in which Mr. X tags along, yes, listen and then question afterwards. That's exactly what I do, you know, because of how this case has gone. You can never be too sure. You have to question everything, even when it is portrayed as the truth, even when it might be strengthened and might be reinforced with other evidence or people coming out agreeing in consensus, or of a certain authority, a certain figure confirming, acknowledging something. It can still all fall through. You do understand that, correct, Mr. X? In addition, when you take into mind how other YouTubers, other channels and panels have reacted to the likes of Jim Terry with time, with certain coverage on the Dylan Rouse case, it may have been overwhelmingly negative, right? Can you say, I've been the same way? That my outlook has been very negative towards Jim, towards you yourself, Mr. X? I don't think so. I mean, let's not forget when you made your presence earlier on, which was probably a couple of months back, where you came out and you left a comment on my channel, all positive, you know, the whole, you know, you're doing a really good job. You just keep doing what you're doing and don't let the negativity drag you down. Ignore the haters, rise above it and keep on going. Well, that's exactly what I'm doing now. But instead of you giving out the positive advice, you're technically and arguably one of the haters, complainers and whiners. So I am following through with your advice, but it's directly, you know, tables have changed, okay? So already we're seeing whiny behaviour, we're seeing a change in attitude, tone of voice, in terms of the text, in terms of how they fail to comprehend the idea of balance, okay? Unfortunately for Mr. X, it appears he's demonstrating egocentrism, right? Lack of reasoning ability, lack of understanding and the concept, the procedure of how I go about things within a case like this, kind of consistent to how I did with the Kenny Veach case, right? Because that's one of the key things. It's okay moving onto a case, joining a community and being a certain way, but to be able to keep that up for over 3 to 4 years straight with a certain pattern and order of things, and for stuff to play out and appear as you would think or expect or predict with time, and that's across 2 completely different cases. That's something different. That's on a different level, right? You think about it, you got a true crime case, Dylan Raz, then you got a mystery disappearance case. One's very deep, mysterious. The other one is kind of like more darker. It's more to do with people. The other one's kind of more the unknown and all the other wild theories that come in. Not so much with Dylan Raz, okay? I think, you know, with time and with coverage, demonstrating balance, such as how I do, where I may listen to a popular person, then listen to a hated person, and then question both, maybe at the same time or one after another, okay? Because of not picking sides, everyone gets a bit rattled and, you know, start moaning, right? And I would assume that with Mr. X, maybe Jim Terry as well, how they might have seen the odd video of mine, how I've covered things, right? Back then, they should understand to why I'm doing the same here, aimed at them, right? Really, the only reason why the likes of Mr. X, his channel, let's say, has popped up showing resistance towards me in recent time is because I've been suddenly analysing them. It's not something I have done really before. You know what I'm saying? With time, I've looked at different individuals. I've looked at Pancakes, listened to him, seen the odd bit of material, may have been able to reinforce certain points with it, so credit to Pancakes, but then also counter other points and try and understand his behaviour, his personality, and how things have changed, right? I've observed that, I've documented that on my previous videos. If you want to check it out, I believe there is a video titled Pancake Has a Meltdown or something, right? There's no harm in doing it, right? I mean, if people needed or had to document me, it's fair enough, understandable, if need be, right? Obviously, some things can get out of proportion and there is like false observation made, inaccuracy. Saw that quite a lot within the Kenny Veach case. A lot of people accusing me of being paid off or being abducted by the men in black just because I changed my opinion on something. That's where it goes a bit over the top, right? And it's like, no, come on, gotta dial it down a little bit, simmer down, okay? So really, was there any previous resistance popping up? Yes, and I did document that as well. I think it more so started with the Gorilla Jack fallout with Jim Terry, etc., where I heard it from Gorilla Jack's side of the story, talked about it, covered it. Mr. X channel popped in saying, you don't know what you're talking about, you have no clue, this has happened, that's been dealt with, that's all you need to know. That's roughly how it was worded, and it's like, okay. And then, followed by that, I did a video myself looking at their point of view, trying to understand it from their position. So technically, you know, some people want to twist it. I was defending Mr. X, Jim Terry, at one point. And then way back before that, I was, you know, listing the odd positive points about them. So I've not really been causing them any trouble. And yet, by, in a way, not causing trouble, and for the most part of it, keeping my head down, maintaining balance, questioning all different sides and all different people within the case, when it was their turn, which was just recent, they didn't like it. And that's where the presence was made by Mr. X. So that's like an additional backstory to what this like observation and change in behaviour is about, right? It went from back then where Mr. X was somewhat positive, and was somewhat respectful and, you know, being supportive on my channel in the past. And then all of a sudden it's snap change, snap mentality, right? So it doesn't always have to be the suspects within a case with a snap mentality like Brenner. It can happen with the people investigating it, covering it, etc. And I think that's what we've seen, okay? Let's proceed on with the next comment. The only final point I do want to make note of, because I don't know if I stressed the importance already or not, okay? Ty Corbyn, you know, his level of patience is a lot better, right? As I said previously, with how things have played out and how things have gone, okay? When I questioned him, when I was suspicious of him, just like how I may have been with others, that balance. Ty didn't throw his toys out the pram. Ty didn't have a hissy paddy fit. You know, he just either ignored it or got on with his own stuff, right? That's fair enough. Same can't be said about Mr. X, so maybe Mr. X needs to learn something from Ty, maybe. I mean, Ty calls in a lot there, so I'm sure it won't be that hard to learn from, okay? And as I said, Ty has appeared in my videos. People in the chat would have seen him, made his presence known, answering questions, helping, assisting. That's great, isn't it? It's good of Ty to do that. But maybe internally, subconsciously, Mr. X, Jim Terry, both or one of them, doesn't like the idea of what third-party exports to other channels in assistance. They want it all, you know, all on their channel, maybe, so they can bring it all in, bring all that energy in. I mean, there could even be sexual frustration building up within some people, possibly. The sexual frustration of certain individuals are unable to penetrate through into my channel and appear, or vice versa. Maybe that's the case. But let's just put that aside for now and move on to the next comment made by Mr. X in the same video.
So moving on to the next one, as you can see here, Mr. X says, Doug is a fair weather fan and likes Candice Cooley today because he makes money with her now, just like he did with Ty, Lance, Jim, or anyone else who has come and gone there. So if there's frustration around that externally, to an extent, even though I'm not really a part of it, I wouldn't really know. I can understand that being possible case, right? I know Jim Terry, Mr. X have popped up those slides, those photos on their streams saying, with us, this such and such a person was successful, and without, they didn't have it. So these other channels that invited someone like Jim Terry, Mr. X on, was like exploited, they used them so they could benefit for themselves, and then jumping ship, moving about. Doug maybe speaking bad of Dylan, Candice in the past, and then supporting Candice and Candice supporting Doug, and then working together in tandem, right? We've seen a lot of backstabbing, right? I can understand that from Mr. X. Mr. X probably does have a point here, okay? So I'm demonstrating balance. I'm listening to Mr. X, despite him having a tantrum with me and criticising me. I'm listening to him, okay? So, fair enough. Let's move on to the next comment. And this is where he says, he was responding back to one of my earlier responses. And Mr. X said, keeping the case alive from England, yet you won't have Jim on your show or call in his live when he is directly dealing with all these people. Well, we all have different methods and procedures, okay?
So firstly, one thing to highlight is in this comment, the text and tone of language used is almost like indirect, unintentional interactional synchrony in which he's mirroring my actions in the supposed video he was criticizing me about. So technically he's being a hypocrite himself, questioning this, and that, why this, why that. Well, you should know, Mr. X, when you have previously watched my videos and praised me and would have understood the pattern by then of balance and why I question different things, okay? And yet the point you put forwards with a question mark next to it was keeping the case alive, which could be a rhetorical question, maybe. But it was more questioning, I guess, my ability, like questioning, Raf, are you really sure you're keeping this case alive? I'd say so. I'm not saying I've solved it or I've completed it. I'm merely saying I'm keeping the case alive. And it's evident. You go on YouTube now, you go on the search page, it's quite saturated with my videos. Now, it wasn't like that in the past because whilst I was consistent, you had other YouTubers who are more popular, have a bigger audience, uploading videos to do with the Dylan Rounds case, and their videos appeared right at the top and were all the way down, and then mine kind of trickled below that right at the bottom. But now I'm more up there. Is that because I've become really successful? No, it's just simply because other people have moved on, right? So if I didn't exist, if I didn't cover this case, all those people that moved on, right, covering other cases, what would have happened with Dylan? Well, it just would have faded away. As for the YouTube platform, every now and then you get the odd little update, you know. And speaking of which, as for Jim Terry, Mr. X, well, maybe they've been working behind the scene on the case at times. For most part of it, even Jim Terry said himself, for the last few months, we've not really been talking about Dylan Rounds or even participating in that. We've been doing our own thing, right? So in the midst of your absence, in the midst of the absence of Zavgirl, Tyler Feller, and in a way, no thanks, and at a certain point in time, Salty Pancakes, I have remained. Whilst all the other people scuttled off to the Idaho 4 case, or the Baby Quinton Simon case, or the Kylie Rodney case, I was implanted, embedded, foundations built, and kept going within the Dylan Rounds case. Because someone had to do it, someone had to be present to raise awareness, to create noise, because noise can at least keep the case alive, but it can also indirectly and directly bring in more people, encourage people to come on in, and it might even encourage people to step up and say something. You never know. That might be what has already happened, okay? The next point Mr. X said was, from England? Well, from the UK, if you're going to word it appropriately, okay? But, you know, this is the thing. Boots on ground is effective when looking for a missing person, right? But then the digital part, the media aspect, covering it, because you've got no press conferences or press releases, whether it's done professionally or amateur, another person can step up and can provide day-to-day updates. You could argue that's what I have done, also giving my own thoughts, theories and ideas too, but wording it in an appropriate way. So it's not me trying to pretend this is a fact, turning that rumour into a fact by calling someone else behind the scenes who supposedly is in this position or role to confirm it for you, when it could be a load of BS, okay? No, I'm just simply and clearly saying, this is a theory, this is an idea, this is a concept, this is an alternative. Even Ty Corbyn, for the most part of it, seems to have catched on with the wording and the formula, you know, as we go along, right? Because there's still a lot of unanswered questions, right? So that's why you think of possible alternatives and ideas, right? The next part about not appearing on panel whilst JT is dealing with everyone and all the chaos. Yeah, you could praise, you could acknowledge Jim Terry having to deal with everyone left, right and centre, having to put up with backlash, having to be, you know, the one that, you know, gets bashed all the time, yet may have been right about certain things from day one. And then what does he get at the end? You know, aside more criticism? Maybe. But, you know, have you ever thought that maybe some people don't want to deal with Jim Terry or Mr. X, that they would prefer a different formula, a different method of reaching out? Because with time, the odd person has reached out to me. You know, they've said that they prefer my structure, they prefer my video format, they feel more comfortable. And if someone feels more comfortable, they might feel more inclined to open up, to share a story, to share some information, which is good, which is a positive, right? No harm in doing that. Everyone has different styles and methods. If everyone was the same, then the case probably wouldn't be as functional, right? You know, just like how Emil Durkheim said that in society that you need a certain level of crime to reinforce the boundaries of what's acceptable and what's not, going past that point of where you would get in trouble, right? Just strengthening and reinforcing those rules, a certain level of it, even if it's positive or negative, it just makes it work, like the cogs, the gears rolling, right? So you applied that almost like method within the Dylan Brown's case. Some people have the hard-hitting, loud-mouthed route, such as Jim Terry, inviting people on, battling it out with one another, the odd bit of criticisms, the odd bit of fun, and also trying to get to the bottom of things and reaching out to other contacts who may be genuine or may not be, you never know. Then you got me, a bit more of a quieter approach. Maybe it's a symbolism of what I'm like in real life. You treat people how you'd want to be treated, right? With a certain method, style, and format, okay? We're doing a self-psychological assessment on myself as we talk, as we go along. More about that in previous videos too. And for most part of it, the overall feedback from my style of videos has been almost, I'd say, without being narcissistic, 90% positive, right? You get the odd few people coming in saying, when are you going to do a live stream, a literal live stream? It's just not practical. If this format works, it works. If people come on in with information, which is what we're starting to see now, it works. With Montello locals watching in the background and some other people too. If it works, right? If you follow like everyone else, you associate and, you know, pick sides, it can lead to your own downfall. Whilst it's okay, you could say Doug, maybe Pancakes, maybe Tyler Feller have invited Jim Terry, Mr. X onto their shows, and whilst it may have been a success, when that's been taken away afterwards, that original person who may have benefited in the short term, whether it was manipulative or not, you could argue that with Doug, just like how Jim Terry and Mr. X is saying, they actually appear worse off afterwards once that presence has been taken away. You could say like when, you know, Operation Iraqi Freedom 2003, taking out Saddam Hussein, capturing him, US go in, okay, take over, take control up to a certain point, but they don't leave an established government built within, so it all implodes on itself when they pull themselves out of the country, and it just leads to more chaos, worse off than what it was to begin with, right? So that symbolism, that style event can apply here within the Dylan Brown's case too. Yes, it's an extreme example, but sometimes you've got to go extreme to prove a certain point, to penetrate through people's, you know, shields built up within them. Sometimes it's not always externally, that hard, you know, face exterior. Okay, Stoney might be built different in both name, presence, appearance, and whatever. Right? His glasses are probably like JCB style, hard lasting glasses. Well done for you, okay? But it doesn't always work, okay? So, you know, people like different styles to move about, right? And to just finally note it off with that point, you know, certain key individuals, whether it be the Shack Lady, even the Shack Lady has said, okay, yes, whilst doing these live streams, it's good, it's practical, yeah, it kind of helps, but it's good to be able to get away from that, to get away from that live pressure, to get away from all that drama, at least from the past, to be able to move elsewhere to a different format, a bit more relaxed, a bit more laid back. I mean, you know, key point what Jim Terry or Mr. X could argue is, yes, but Raf, it's not as hard hitting, it's not as, you know, full impact, it's not going to solve it immediately. You know, you got to be quick, you got to be fast, you got to hit hard, you got to do this, and you got to do that. Like, okay, but isn't that what you're doing, right? Aren't you successful? Yes? No? Are you doubting yourself? If you're doubting yourself, then maybe you're doing something wrong. All depends on your own response back to that. If you feel like you're doing the right thing or you are making progress, then you keep doing so, right? If I feel like I am being able to keep the case alive, and that's what feels like is happening, then that's what I'll do. As simple as that. Now, I know you get those terms thrown about, right? And maybe it might apply more to people within a country covering a case within that country they live in, but it can apply externally. That label of armchair detective, okay? Sitting back in your chair, saying this, saying that, will stop talking and start acting. I mean, that can't even be applied to me, because how can I be an armchair detective when I'm sitting on a bloody bed? You know, it doesn't work. And oh shit, I've just revealed the top. Yes, I am wearing an American football shirt. I'm sure that's going to I wouldn't be surprised, let's just word it like that. I wouldn't be surprised if Mr. X criticises me for wearing an American football top. Why do I have it on? Do I support whoever this is? No, it's just a casual top and that's all. It'll probably be seen as sacrilege towards some people. How dare you disrespect the American Football Association? Well, oh well. I mean, I am wearing an American football top indoors. Indoor American football. Oh no, never mind. Let's just level back up with the next comment made by Mr. X.
So here's the next comment. And this was in response to when I provided him a link to my previous experience when covering a past case, which was the Kenny Veach disappearance case, along with the M Cave mystery, which I covered extensively for over 2 years, 58 videos made on the case, okay? And for the most part of it, I was able to keep that case alive for quite a while. And then when Sean Carner, one of the originals, stepped back in recent time, even he acknowledged it as well. So that's good of him, you know, whilst he was, you know, busy doing other things in real life. So, you know, I just wanted to provide an example, okay? A little bit of background history to myself. And from the looks of it, Mr. X didn't seem too pleased. He was like, who the fuck is Kenny Veach? And who cares? You covered JT and you have never spoke to Jim or called in. It's a bit ridiculous. So he's still fixated on that point, okay? The bit where it says, who the fuck is Kenny Veach and who cares? That's not exactly, you know, the right attitude to have, right?
You know, whether it be your character portrayed or how you've established your channel and the cause, the meaning, the backstory behind it, the purpose, and maybe how it's been worded in past live streams, that it's about helping people, helping families find the truth, find missing people, whether it be the Dylan Rounds case or other ones you've, you know, participated in, whether it be Jim Terry directly or if Mr. X has played a part too. It's kind of going back on all those words, what you stand for, by dismissing a missing person out there and saying, who the fuck cares? That's quite selective behaviour, okay? With that selective behaviour, it could imply biasness. And do you want a person who's biased when it comes to trying to solve a case? Because you may side with a certain party or a certain party of thoughts within or within somebody else. And considering you have criticised the likes of Doug being biased, switching and changing to suit him and his mindset and thoughts at the time, but he supposedly cares about this and that and tries to solve this and that, but then goes against it or does it vice versa, and yet you're doing it yourself here by dismissing other missing people. It's kind of, you know what I'm saying? I mean, obviously, at the end of the day, there's appropriate language and wording to get about it, you know. If it doesn't concern you or it's not of interest, you just simply say, oh, I've never heard of that case, or, oh, well, I'm kind of caught up, tied up within this at the moment, or it's not quite my speciality, that type of stuff. I really just focus in on true crime, right? I don't really focus on just simple mysteries. You know, there's different ways to word it, just to avoid that backlash, the analysis of wording where it actually portrays you in a more negative way. And unfortunately, I would say in this case, Mr. X, that's what you've done. So that is a shame, but I guess it is what it is. You have to take into mind, when it came to covering the Kenny Veach case, as said, that was the missing person case, missing person mystery, a missing 411, whatever you call it, okay? Dylan Rounds is a true crime case, right? maybe a different set of people, different community, a different structure, but still drama follows regardless, okay? But the coverage and the style can be slightly different too, and yet I transitioned on it over somewhat successfully, right? And that's positive, and it's good the patience of people that have viewed my videos, and also the people that have come on over, followed, that's all good, right? But yeah, in terms of how that was worded about Kenny Veach, you know, I'm not going to be one of those individuals like what you see on the other panels where the whinge and whine say, oh, that's really disrespectful, that's really hurt my feelings, oh, that's not good. All I simply say is probably not the best attitude to have when you're all about this, but then you're doing that, okay? Because I have seen it within the Kenny Veach case, that change in behaviour, that change in mentality, that change in tone of voice or tone of text, okay? And speaking of that, we don't stop there. Let's move on to the next comment and analyse.
So Mr. X then goes on to say, lol, you are funny, Warlike Ref. Jim has spent so much time with these people and being on other shows for free. You are doing a parasite analysis video of Jim and my work getting them on the phone. Well, a parasite analysis. Never really heard of that before. You just wording words together to make it sound intelligent or kind of interesting. I mean, yeah, Jim has done his thing within the case, right? Didn't seem to work out because he got fired, but then arguably maybe he was getting too close to the truth. You never know. I did word it back then, so I didn't completely dismiss Jim. There you go. As for this analysis of Jim, it's probably one of my first and only ones which I have done. Second, by an analysis of you too, because it warrants it. Okay.
Moreover, what I am interested to know from Mr. X or Jim Terry or both at the same time, regardless, if you want to leave a comment, I know that's not your style, but tough shit, okay? You can leave your grievances down below and explain exactly why the analysis is parasitic, because what I'm seeing at the moment is arguably cancerous behaviour. And when it comes to cancerous behaviour, from a human, you got to treat that person as if they were your patients, because, you know, what other way can you go about? You know, whether it be they're not thinking straight, they're not acting straight, they're playing up, you know, they've changed in behaviour all of a sudden, this snap mentality. It's like, okay, whoever you are in this situation, Mr. X, or maybe it's secretly Jim Terry, you never know, close your mouth, okay? If you want to breathe, breathe if you need to, but hush, okay? Shh. Because we're not going to get anywhere if it's just screeching backwards and forwards. So hopefully you are listening and you have managed to listen previous. If not, that's unfortunate, but that's not my problem, okay? So when it comes to these analyses, which are very recent, because I've been focusing on many other people previous, and, you know, for the most part of it, they didn't seem to react as badly as you have. And yet the same styles and methods have been applied, because, you know, when looking at Pancake's stream last night when he was reacting to, I guess, to Jim Terry stuff, it was like dismissing it, saying, yeah, it's a load of rubbish, it's a load of crap. And then all the other people on the panel were agreeing, saying, yeah, Jim Terry faking it all, trying to fit an agenda, bashing him, okay? And I guess other channels too, and even Bella V. So they're all on Jim Terry's back, criticising him. Okay, that's their opinion, fine. Did I do the same? No. What I did was jot down key points made from Jim Terry's, Mr. X's live stream, at least the part one, and then give my thoughts on it, my analysis, my add-ons, okay? Whether it be reinforcing a point or questioning it, okay? And I don't know if one of the points did strike a nerve, but the bit about supposedly proving that Dylan was gay and that Kurt was the, dating Dylan. It's like, okay, the producer kind of indirectly confirmed that without knowing who Kurt was, because Jim Terry never mentioned Kurt's name in the first place. And all I simply questioned was, well, if this producer, if this company, this crew don't know information about this or that or Montello, they don't know all the facts and backstories, but they're only listening to Candice Cooley and only her orders, then, you know, who told them about Kurt Wadsworth? And if it was from the likes of Candice Cooley or from that area, neck of the woods, considering Candice Cooley and family members seem to be insistent and certain that Dylan is not gay and was never gay, then, where did it come from? I worded it arguably better and questioned it deeper, right? This is just on the spot, quick relay. If you want to check that video out, feel free to do so. It was uploaded like a day or two ago, so it is there to watch, and make sure to watch it, okay? It was probably from yesterday, possibly, okay? But just watch it anyway, if you want to. I guess Mr. X or whoever watched it in the first place to be complaining, of course, might have been watching it live. Time travels fast in a sense, but yeah. I think we should move on to the next comment, I guess. And lastly, Jim Toe TV2, Mr. X had to say, dude, I could care less about who Kenny or M Cave is. Don't care. You are going to help people, in this case from England, with Google Maps. Okay, later guys. Call Jim and stop the BS. Well, I mean, in the eyes of other people at least, in the eyes of other people, they would hear you saying to Raf, stop the BS, but how they portray you or what they've heard or seen and what's been presented could be considered as you portraying bullshit as well. So technically you're no better, almost a hypocrite once again. 3 lots of hypocritical behaviour. Egocentrism, a little bit of narcissism as well. Really filling and ticking the boxes, right? Well, that's what it's all about. But yeah, once again, reinforcing the point about don't care, yeah, whatever, Kenny, missing person, who cares? Who cares about a missing person, even though that's what we're all about, helping and finding missing people, connecting with families. Oh, kind of a bit pick and choosing, right? Says you're going to help people, in this case from England, with Google Maps. Well, yeah, actually, yeah. Being able to pinpoint places of interest to begin with. Also, I will be assisting Ty Corbyn independently when I do my next Google Map analysis, okay? So that will help spread awareness in the mindset of Ty Corbyn, visually speaking. Some people are visual learners. Some people prefer boots on ground. When you combine both together, it complements one another, and that's exactly what's going to happen. And, whether this be Mr. X or Jim Toe, once again, complaining and whining, the importance of Kenny Veach and M Cave, not just down to the consistency of keeping the case alive, not down to being the main one to cover the CCTV footage supposedly of Kenny Veach in 2018, and also documenting a phone call by Kenny Veach's account in 2022, which could suggest and reinforce that he is alive. But would any of that come about as on the forefront of YouTube if I wasn't there? No, it just would have faded away. So there was success there, success in the right people coming out at times, reaching out, privately in a quieter, more calming, settled state and atmosphere. So that's been a success. But the most critical part was the Google Maps. And, once again, very impetuous of Mr. X and almost insulting to an extent, calling it Google Maps. No, we are not looking at Google Maps. For most part of it, we have been looking at Google Earth, okay? 2 different launchers, 2 different, alternatives, right? 2 completely different things. But obviously, Mr. X has failed to understand that, along with many other things, which is no surprise at this moment in time of speaking, okay? I have used Google Earth, and on the odd occasion, Google Earth Pro, which allows you to go back in time, okay? As for Google Maps, you can do so much, but you can't create projects, you can't pinpoint things, you can't draw lines, you can't do all that fancy edits and stuff. Visually speaking, it doesn't look as clear or as crystal as it does with Google Earth. There's been people that have used Google Earth and then, for some reason, reached out to me and said, oh my God, visually, yours is so much better. How did you manage it? And I'm just like, oh, well, I'm just using the mobile app. Okay, but it seems to work, right?
Really, the only thing that Google Maps can do, which Google Earth supposedly can't, is go back in time as for Street View. Okay? Street View, you can go back in time with Google Maps. With Google Earth Pro, you can go back in time, but from the aerial imagery looking down. Correct? Yes? Okay. And as well, tying it with the Kenny Veach case, I was able to successfully map out blindly, even though I'm not even from the US, even though I'm not from that area of Las Vegas, nowhere near, and I was able to accurately pinpoint hike routes, and they were acknowledged by actual hikers that went out there previously and in the future. One of the hikers, known as Jeff Claw, saying, that map analysis, that usage of Google Earth has and can help people down the line. It should have been used for the official search and rescue. An actual person who was present in the area said that. That's quite positive and encouraging, right? That with time, people have said that I seem to know more about the place than people who live there, right? I seem to have been able to do this and do that, right? So at some point, providing there is consistency, maybe that will replicate once again in the Dylan Rounds case. Okay? So, in addition, with the usage of Google Maps, or how you call it, or Google Earth, how I use it, okay? It's a different style. It complements the boots on ground. You might not always be able to get out there, right? For whatever reason, such as right now with the weather, the snow, the ground being hard. But you can get out there, technically, as for the maps. You map out the routes, get an idea, first of all. It does seem to help, right? And people have mentioned that in the chat. Quite a few people have praised it and said, it's actually quite useful.
So, after that exchange of conversations, he was having none of it, which is typical with most humans when I do come across them in life. It's always, they're right, they're right, they're right, and that's it. But the person did walk off with their hat tucked in between their legs. Wouldn't quite make sense, that. But you get the idea. Mr. X, Jim Terry, whoever's in disguise, walked away, right? And then that was the end. Obviously, it could come back tonight. It could come back tomorrow, whenever. But we'll just see how things go, right? To put it in summary, the reality is, from the looks of it, the channel itself, Mr. X, didn't take too kindly of me analysing their recent live stream, whether it be because they felt threatened, whether it be because they felt like they were being insulted, because I was just simply questioning points and being observant and being balanced and not going all in like how other people do. That's why it led to a negative, response back. And it's only happened now, really, because I never really talked about them directly in the past. I never tagged them in the past. I never did a literal analysation of them, right? But because it happened recently, they would have known about it, whether it be just looking through the videos or noticing the mention part. And so what followed, right? You could say in the early stages, Mr. X appeared positive, a little bit respectful, supportive, praising me. But all of a sudden now it's, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Why are you questioning this? Why do you really think you can solve it? You really think you're doing a good job? Really, Raf, really? Why did you not say that to begin with? Why be positive and then change down the line? Wasted time. Be more efficient, Mr. X. Straight to the point. Hit hard to begin with. Be more like Jim Terry, if that's the case. Straight to the point to begin with. If you hate a person, highlight it, or if you got an issue, highlight it, instead of being all that toxic positivity, the cancerous positivity of, oh, yeah, and then down the line, it ends up being the complete opposite, and it's like, well, that was a waste of time, wasn't it? But I think, once again, what we are witnessing, because it's typically by me, and 100% reinforced by actual in real life experience, where, just to briefly reiterate what happened in the past, a person who I knew from almost like day one going into high school. For over 10 to 11 years of being best friends with someone. Everybody else saw the person as funny, popular, good, kind, but for some reason, on the odd occasions, they psychologically turned on me, psychologically bullied me, called me ugly, fat, failure, a joke. And did anyone else hear about it? Did anyone else see that side to that person? No. Because it was kind of like the behind closed door method, where when it's a one-on-one, they seem to act differently. They change. It was like one of those domestic incident type things. Whereas in this case, it was psychological bullying. Now, if I was to come forth, which I didn't because I keep my head down just like most of the time, if I, at the time, for some reason, had confidence to speak out and say, this is exactly what happened, I would be dismissed immediately. Because if everybody sees a positive side to that one individual, and then I come out, the less popular one, it's then going to make me look bad. It's then going to backfire on me. It makes me worse off, and no one believes. And then you fast forward to maybe saying something else down the line, because you've already got a bit of bad credibility, supposedly. Okay? They're not going to believe you even then. So, you see what I'm saying? And you translate that to online, because this is the important thing. In real life, stuff happened, which would happen online too, and yet it was in real life before, then followed by online. So whilst everyone can all play down the the fact that, oh yeah, online, that's just bad, it's just bad, online people, it's not good, not good, you think in real life is any better? Maybe to some, but from my experience, no. Okay? So that's what separates humans from one another and realities. Okay? And as for the online part within these communities and cases, I have seen changes in behaviour. I have documented it with evidence. I have presented it to other humans. And regardless of the small backlash by the original person, I'm going to do so because I'm not going to allow what happened back then to happen once again. Oh no, not at all. And just like with the female physical abusing which I received in the past, that will not happen again. Believe that. Okay. Now, that aside, you think about it. Okay. Resistance, predictions, tying in line with one another in a sense. Predicting this leading to resistance. Predicting that there would be resistance, which leads to resistance. There you go. And the key thing is, whilst on other cases or whilst on other channels and panels, it consumes it, it clouds it, it darkens it, okay? It leads to distractions, it leads to negative reactions, it leads to, misdirection, moving away, not progressing with the actual case in the matter of Dylan Rounds. We can do both, okay? And that's what's been done since day one, and since day one of the Kenny Veach case. Whilst other people may advise, don't say this, don't say that, don't cover this, don't cover that, I can, because I can do that alongside with covering the case appropriately. That's why we split it down the middle most of the times, and that is it. Okay? Some people might like to split it down like this and that and give a blessing too. Well, blessings come to those who portray good behaviour. And I think recently, I don't think that will be happening. Okay? So, let's move on. Let's cleanse our palates, okay? Not with any juice, as some people get obsessed about. Let's move on to the Dylan Rounds forum and just read on, okay? Because even though I may have failed to have said this earlier on in the video, feel free to share your thoughts, opinions, reactions, responses and ideas, and talk about a range of other stuff in between. You can. If you want to be dodgy, you can, okay? But let's just focus on Dylan Rounds at this moment in time to maintain, restore back that balance and to see if there's anything of interest, any key questions, any key information or focuses on people we may have brushed over, not heard of before, because this forum has provided the odd few interesting talking points. So let's keep that going now.
Okay, so here we are, and this carries on from June 17th, 2022. Regina responds back to Grandma Bear to a previous point saying, I recall that too. I just don't remember where, lol. Until I can hear that a second time, I'm thinking she must have been referring to the day they were collected. I assume that's to do with the boots. By the way, please don't get me wrong. I'm not implying I think Ellie followed protocol when they collected the boots. I'm just trying to ascertain what happened and when. Okay. So I believe this is continuing on from the boots discussion of like how the way they were handled, chucked on the back of the truck, how they should have been taken to the labs, but they weren't, and then there was lies made in between, right? So we're just following on from that. Regina also says, yeah, I thought that info would offer perspective as to how much search area was described. You know, that article mentioned assistance from the Utah Deputy of Public Safety's Aaron Baru. Here's their web page. Okay, so there's a report there. That says early June 2022. Do we check that link out? Yeah, let's just have a brief look at it. Okay, let's not. I did have a brief look and it wasn't to do with Dylan Rounds, so we're not going to waste our time there. Let's move on. Grandma Bear does respond back saying, don't worry, I'm not taking anything wrong. I don't know what I think of Ellie either. I think they've messed up some, but I also think the mother in some cases may expect things that wouldn't be typical of any Ellie agency. Not that some things shouldn't be better, but just saying some things she talks about are the norm and not unique to that county department in that state, in my opinion anyhow. So I guess that's to do with like withholding certain information and evidence. Okay, that's understandable. But then the bits where it's probably not as normal and not as acceptable would be the handling of some of the evidence and resources, which, you know, more effort could have been put in, less delaying and stuff, you know. Also says, yeah, I think the boots, she also said that they were just sitting there unattended somewhere on the day they were found later that day. Dirt mound. I guess at the least it is sounding like they did not protect the evidence, the chain of custody, and even if they did, those remarks out in the public now a defense attorney would likely one day use. Okay. What's this? FBI is now sitting, yeah, just like a little link there. We have read some of these before. What's this? Okay. So this person, Kimster, responding back to the shared link, the discovery of the Find Dylan Rounds Facebook page, saying, oh good, I've been hoping for this news. Okay. Can we read it? Dylan Rounds is missing from Lucin, Utah. This group is created to coordinate information from the family to the public regarding the disappearance of Dylan, the views, opinions expressed. From the looks of this, June 17th. Now, I don't know exactly when the Find Dylan Rounds Facebook page was created, but this is still in the early stages, so maybe this is roughly or near to when it was set up in the first place, before all the members joined in. So the discovery of this. We're almost watching history being made as certain forums or certain communities are being established, certain platforms are being made use of, right, when it comes to the Dylan Rounds case. And this one explains. Okay, so we've got a new person commenting for the first time in this forum called Ariel, saying, you guys give me a summary for dummies. Reading the last pages is confusing. I last read that there was a strange man asking for a ride, which was Chase Venstra. Do we have a sketch, full body, or did they find him? So this person obviously has been away from it. Let's see what this summary says and just see if it falls in line with what we have heard since. She who must not be named says, a summary. Someone please correct me if any of this is wrong. It's hard to keep facts and updates straight in this case. Fair enough. Sorry, this is going to be a longer summary. Okay, here we go. On Wednesday, May 25th, Dylan has a weird run-in with a man at/near his farm in Lucin, Utah. Okay, well that's incorrect to begin with, because it wasn't at or near his farm in Lucin, Utah. It was across the border in Montello, Nevada, near or down Tacoma Road. Okay, that's where the run-in occurred. Now, if for whatever reason someone wants to follow the food chain and correct me if I'm wrong, feel free to do so down below. But that's what I know of, at least, near Tacoma Road, and no one has challenged it since, even when I did my battle-like edit tactics when it came to the different angles, routes, and areas where Chase might have appeared from or escaped from to catch up with Dylan for the very first time. See, even reading historical books from the past of different battle formations, the tortoise or the turtle formation by the Roman soldiers, or the bullhorn tactic by the Zulu warriors, you know, you can apply that in the Dylan Brown's case. Don't worry, it's under control. Okay? So, let's continue reading. This man has been identified. Apparently, he has proof that he was not in the area on the day Dylan disappeared. I believe he is or was in custody on unrelated matters. So the bit to do with saying, he's got proof that he wasn't in the area, arguably, fast forward to what we know of in recent time, there's a point to be made, to be acknowledged, because of him supposedly having an alibi. 7 a.m. at Snowville, at the Flying J's store. And later on in the day, down in Ogden and Clinton, Little Caesars Pizza at 10:30 p.m. Earlier on, at some point, KFC, right? So he's been away from it. You can still say, well, what about in between them? That's still up for grabs. Next part. On Thursday, May 26, bank transaction confirms that Dylan was at Saddle Sore Bar in Montello, Nevada that evening, and later returned to his farm. It was normal for him to travel into Montello to see friends or get food. There are no stores and almost no people out in Lucin. Okay, so I believe that transaction thing on the 26th is correct. I don't believe it was Saddle Sore Bar. I think it was the Cowboy Bar and Grill where the food was bought from. But as well, the gas too at the gas station. So that occurred. But then it says, that evening later returned to his farm. No, because from what we've heard of in recent time, it was the 27th when Dylan returned back to his farm. So he stayed there the night from the 26th to 27th. And later on the 27th in the day, approaching nighttime, got back to his farm to do seeding. And a witness, campers nearby, saw a tractor with lights on in the area near the farm doing the farm-related work and assumed it's Dylan. Okay, so that should explain that. When it says it was normal for him to see friends or get food, yeah, maybe get food, but to see friends, well, could say it's a bit of a stretch because from the looks of it, from what local Montello residents have said recently, such as Weezer, who was in the presence of Dylan from time to time in the past, Dylan would come down and get food. He would sit in the corner of, Cowboy Bar and Grill, eat his food, the odd little chit-chat, but not fully engaging or hanging out with people in that way. Maybe just with Kurt or the odd farmhand because of that passion or that understanding for farming or equipment and fixing stuff. So, you could say it's been a bit exaggerated with time. Here. On Friday, May 27th, witnesses state that Dylan was back in Montello. However, this is not confirmed and the source of the information is in question. Well, what I said about the campers, the witnesses of Dylan returning back to the farm, that was true. But what about this version? Witnesses state that Dylan was back in Montello. Well, he never left. He went the 26th, he stayed there the night, and then left on the 27th. Okay? As said, if anyone wants to correct or add on, feel free to do so in the chat. It says, on Saturday, May 28th, Dylan called or was called by his grandmother. Dylan made the call. In the early hours of the morning, which was at 6:51 a.m., and that was at the gate approaching the grain shed. Okay? He said that he couldn't talk. He had to get his grain truck put away because it was raining or going to rain. Yep. He had seed in the back that could not get wet. True. He said he would return Grandma's call, but never did. True. The last ping from his phone was also presumably from or very near his farm at 3:41 that afternoon. I would say that's pretty much in line with it, 3:41, I guess, because that's to do with near Lucin Pond, which isn't that far away from the grain shed, so I guess how it's worded makes sense. Okay. The bit where it says 3:41, yeah, that's what I've heard in recent time, and I did question that because, with Candice relaying that Brenner supposedly left the trailer at 2:30 p.m. to go to the pond, from 2:30 to 3:41, where the final phone ping was, which was at the pond, how long did it take Brenner to get from his place to the bloody pond? Over an hour or longer. Shouldn't take that long. Only like a couple of minutes to get there. So what was Brenner doing in between, huh? That's what I would like to know. It's okay giving out these timestamps, and there could well be the truth, but it's like, right, so the person left at that time, and then they arrived there at that time, or something indirectly, which is in parallel to the location of where the person was going, appeared at that time later on. And it's like, so what happened in between? Just like with Chase Venstra. Okay, 7 a.m. Snowville, 10 p.m. Ogden Little Caesars Pizza. But what the hell happened in between that massive time frame during the day? Anything could have happened, right? You know what I'm saying? Unless you had CCTV footage which proved you were in a singular area all day long, then I guess you could say you're innocent. But this person was not in one place out the whole day. They were moving out and about, so anything could have happened in between, and the same with Brenner too. Okay? Should we continue? It says, on Sunday, May 29th, Grandma still hadn't heard back from Dylan, so she called up some old friends. Take in mind, this is Sunday. People that work on the farm to check in on him. That is Don Hately and Brenner. Jim Brenner, okay? They apparently found his truck locked, abnormal. Gate locked, abnormal. And no sign of Dylan. Important to note that one of these people was apparently fired by Dylan just weeks before. Yes, I believe it was actually 6 weeks before Dylan went missing. 6 weeks ago. Still kind of fresh, in a sense. And that was Don Hately, who was fired because of a falling out with the washing machine. They parted ways, but it was on neutral terms from how Candice Cooley worded it. But one bit of supposed incorrect information, which is misinformation here from what I know of like now, is that, okay, yeah, the grandma did reach out to the likes of Brenner, Don, but did they actually go out and find the stuff locked? No, because they didn't even bother going out in the first place because there was no footprints, as described by Candice Cooley. They just didn't bother going out there. And that was it. So that's just clearing up that part. And here we go. On Monday, May 30th, no one has still heard from Dylan, and the official search begins. A family breaks into his truck, yes, supposedly the father, Justin, to find the seat scooted all the way forwards and in 4-wheel drive, yes. Neither thing Dylan would do, yeah. The truck had also apparently been power washed, or pressure washed, yeah, that's in question. Dylan's boots were also found behind a dirt pile about 100 yards away, yeah, 100 to 200, from his grain truck. Yep. In the opposite direction, he would have walked back to his camper. Well, yeah. I guess when they say in the opposite direction, walking back to the camper, they mean which is 5 miles east. Okay. So this person's saying that when Dylan did park the grain truck in the grain shed, he should have walked 5 miles east back to his trailer, but instead the boots ended up at the dirt mound. So this person's assuming that Dylan took his boots off and went to the dirt mound, and then whatever happened. But that doesn't seem to be the case from what we've known of in recent time, with the blood being found in the grain shed, which is probably associated with Dylan, and then the blood being the blood droplet on Dylan's boot, whether it's the left or right boot, being associated with Dylan. So really, it's likely Dylan was hurt, taken out inside of the grain shed, and then the boots were taken off for whatever reason and then taken away, which first made an appearance outside Brenner's trailer, as worded by Candice Cooley, relaying on from what Brenner said. And then after that, Brenner decided to pick them back up and then take them then to the dirt mound, the burning pile behind the back, fling them behind, because he said that, oh, not seen Dylan for over a month and I don't expect him to come back. And that's just how it ended there. Okay. And then what's last? On Tuesday, May 31st, someone stated that Dylan was being held hostage in Montello. I believe this person is the same one whose account of Dylan being in Montello on Friday cannot be confirmed. Police responded and found no sign of Dylan. So I think that's correct, May 31st or around the 1st of June, you know, one or the other dates, because what happened shortly afterwards, which from how it was eventually worded by Candice Cooley, despite going back and forth, that the day after it led to the key fob and Dylan's gun being returned in a certain order one day after another, right? As for this hostage situation, it was Kurt Wadsworth, the one who, I guess, worded here, who cannot be named, Kurt Wadsworth. He was like a friend of Dylan, in a sense, and maybe more to some people. One of the key friends in which Dylan would probably go to quite often in Montello mainly, right? Yeah, I mean, there's talks originally that Kurt heard from a psychic and then passed the information on to the family and the police about the hostage situation, but then other people are saying that Brenner was the one that came out with it or suggested it possibly, and then Kurt catched on. Ty Cobbin believes or feels like there was a phone call made with Brenner and Kurt on the day of the 28th, probably earlier on in the morning maybe, or midday. Who knows what that reason was for. So yeah, that's like a nice summary what that person provided. A few things needed to be corrected, but that's normal because that's back then in June, right? Things would have changed since. And, you know, you never know. You never know that after these videos I've made, you fast forward a couple of months on, you might be updating more points or countering previous events, dates, numbers, whatever, figures. Possible, okay? Or this one, she must not be named, says, something that I've been thinking about. Why would Dylan's boots be removed? Yeah, good point. That's what I said at one point. In my mind, there is no way Dylan did this to himself. If he was out there by that dirt pile for some reason, he would have no reason to take them off on his own. Even if something innocent happened and he got a bloody nose and bled on his boots, why would he remove them and have to walk 100 yards back barefoot? Why not just walk back and then take off the boots? If there was actually old boots and not the ones he wore every day, doesn't seem likely based on the family's statements about the condition of the boots and whatnot being fresh. Why would they just be left out there by the dirt pile? Dylan doesn't seem like the type to discard rubbish by a pile of dirt instead of just getting rid of them properly. But also, why would a perpetrator do it? They don't seem like boots that would just... Oh, right. They don't seem like boots that would just fall off of his feet, so why not leave them with him? And if you've just removed someone's boots after you've harmed them, why are you going to leave them so close? Certainly they'd be found in the search. Would they think this is a clue? Would point in a different direction? But what direction? Now, two key points did come out from my previous video when I talked about this, okay? I was like, well, if you're going to remove the boots, then why not remove the rest of the clothing? And I believe it was Harry. Can't remember his last name. I came up with Hairy Harry, okay? Harry with the good haircut, okay? And he suggested that the reason why the boots were taken off is because they don't decompose at all, or it takes significantly longer for them to decompose. So that's why you take them off. As for the remains of Dylan, they will decompose with time, and I guess clothing does decompose too. It breaks down, it rots, but with shoes, not quite the same case, okay? So I understand that, yeah, that's a good point to make, but really, like when it comes to a person's body, that decomposes, but bones are left, and bones remain for a very long time, don't they? You know, you see it like with prehistoric stuff, supposedly digging up archaeological digs of dinosaurs or creatures from the past being fossilized and whatnot, etc. Remains found of humans too from the past, all kinds of stuff like that, right? And it happens, and that those bones didn't break down, did they? And then you might get the other extremes where people are saying, you know, you get the right temperature, it'll burn it down. So if you got the likes of Auschwitz, where they put them in the ovens, turn it on, okay, the architect, was it Joseph Mengele or something? So yeah, that's how you fully dispose of it. It turns into ash, and then you just get rid of it that way. But I don't think it exactly went to that extreme. People can challenge that point down below if they wish to, but really, if Dylan is buried somewhere, you'll find his bones. Yeah, that's if you know where he's actually at, or if you just find him by luck, right? You most likely will find something, bones. And if that's the case, then you might as well just keep the boots on, because if you feel like the boots won't decompose, but the bones won't either, then you probably should be thinking, right, I might as well literally get rid of both and burn them. But if that's not the case, or if you only think one way and not all in, then it's kind of like, well, you might as well just keep the boots on, just for the sake that if they're going to find the bones, they're going to find the bones. They're going to find the shoes, they're going to find the shoes attached to the bones, right? If you're going to burn the bones, then you might as well burn the shoes as well. It's literally like that. That's the way I see it, at least, okay? Anything else? Let's work our way down. Great summary. I'd add to it that Dylan's mum said it sounds like Dylan wore nothing for footwear, but these boots ever sounds like for years, and when one wore pair or got close, he bought another. Yeah, fine, brand new in boots. So for Dylan to be without boots for all intents and purposes would like mean he was barefoot and not in another pair of footwear. He wore nothing else. I mean, he could have changed or gotten something mum didn't know about, but it seems unlikely. The boots being found hit mum and dad hard because I think she means it shows something very suspicious, serious, very bad, wrong, something's going on, parted from the boots. I think the overall leaning, and for me too, is some perpetrator got rid of his footwear or made him take them off, and probably to keep control of him, but you do have a point of why if they did something to him, would they leave boots evidence so close and apparently not that hard to find, but then who would have locked the truck and scooted the seat up, something else that would be found and noticed fairly quickly and close to home. I mean, I can understand a bit about, like, why would you leave the boots nearby, but then the counterpoint could be, which people have said, well, are you going to expect anyone to turn up and then start looking? Maybe you didn't anticipate that, and in that short space of time, so Brenner was kind of startled by that, wasn't prepared with that part. But the bit about, is it even possible that Dylan was barefoot? Well, I'd say with time now, and with hearing about other examples going on, I did ask Ellen Berg about, did you experience anyone with time with no shoes on in odd situations? And Ellen said no. Okay, fair enough. But if there's any other Montello locals watching right now or in the future and you're hearing this, in whatever shape or form, public, private, feel free to leave a comment in some way. If you have experienced people randomly turning up with no shoes or appearing distressed with no shoes, or your own experience, if you had it directly where you were forced to take your shoes off because someone forced you to, there was like a level of control. Because when we look back, the likes of Chase Venstra, who supposedly was attacked or kidnapped by someone previous, his shoes been removed. There were some reports where they were saying that the shoes were around his neck, dangling. I don't know if that's 100% true. It could be a rumour. But for most part of it, I've heard of it, he was just barefoot, no shoes, would have taken off him, most likely, because why would you run through a desert without shoes? You're torturing yourself. But if you've got no choice and you have to get away, even if you haven't got footwear, that's what you'll do, right? Kind of like sacrificing yourself to a point to be able to escape, right? When it came to that blonde-haired female who appeared with no shoes on, waiting for a boyfriend or something like that, even when people reached out saying, do you want help? And they dismissed it. Like, where are their shoes? Like, where are they? They weren't anywhere near, so they would have taken away from her, stolen. Was she forced, punished to walk distance in that heat? I mean, it was just a point made, just a point. But during that time in that conflict with Ty Corbyn and Salty Pancakes, Ty Corbyn was saying, if we had pancakes here, we would have left him out in the desert so he can make his way back, so he can learn a lesson. I guess the environment, the roughness, the terrain, the heat, especially during the summer, right? The extremity of it. A punishment, learning a lesson. What if other Montello locals or outsiders or newer people moving in did the same thing to certain people, such as Venstra, such as this blonde-haired girl, such as Dylan Rounds? Dylan may have been taken out, yeah, but in the process or just before that, he might have been told or forced to remove his boots. And maybe if he rejected that claim, that demand, they did it with force, which then led to things getting out of control. Possibly. You never know. Okay? Anything else here? I don't, however, see any reason he would part himself from the boots. I can't imagine a scenario where he would, unless he staged this and wanted people to think something happened but left of his own accord. And in no way does he sound like that type of person. But if I'm correct in saying, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think, if I'm correct in saying, Jim Terry touched upon that idea that Dylan may have just wanted to get away from the likes of Candice Cooley and the family and stage it. You know? She also says, the grandma bear, I even have wondered if something happened, like say he did something to his feet, and the boots were rubbing on sores or blisters, etc. And it got so painful walking, he had to take them off, and we know he was or could have been walking back. But why would he ditch them and not carry them unless he realised they were shot and just threw them out or left them? If it was a case of sores or pain and walking 5 miles may have even done it, the spot of blood may have been from his own foot. Yeah, maybe the blood seeping through, but then again it depends how it's been analysed. Was the blood drop rise to the surface because it was soaked in from within, or did it drop down like a droplet? That's what you got to ask yourself, okay? And from how it's been described, it's like a droplet, so it must have dropped from above, such as the head area. And well, if Dylan honestly had issues with walking back to his farm, I'm sure he could have got a tractor or some kind of vehicle nearby to drive back. If he was really desperate, I think he would have done that. I mean, you could say, well, what about asking Brenner for a ride back? Well, maybe Brenner probably would have denied that because, you know, his attitude and being awkward. It's normally Brenner that gets the free rides and driven about. I don't think it would be vice versa in that case. But, you know, you can leave your thoughts down below. Maybe I might do a poll now or a bit later and see what you think, okay? What else? So it also goes on to say, some criminals will get rid of their footwear so cops can't match the prints from a crime scene, but Dylan is no criminal that we know of and doesn't seem the type from what we have heard of, but that is one case you may see footwear discarded. I mean, from what I know of, Dylan isn't really a criminal, but it was that like police stoppage when they were pulled over when Dylan and his friends, I think JD might have been in the car, correct me if I'm wrong, but other people were pulled over. Alcohol was on them, underage, but at least Dylan wasn't drunk. But I guess Jim Terry was, the way he was wording it in his video, was kind of portraying Dylan as being a criminal and receiving a fine and getting in trouble seriously. I mean, I think Dylan still got told off, but I don't think it was as serious as it was worded previous, okay? But I can understand the bit about maybe taking the shoes off to confuse the cops and, you know, to cause disruption. Maybe the suspect, the criminal, the one responsible, might have caused misdirection and might have caused confusion with the prints, the shoes themselves. You never know. Any other examples? When it comes to someone like Aidan Clune, Aidan Clune took his shoes off here and there to cross the road and then took his shoes off eventually so far into the desert. So that may have confused the police. But Aidan wasn't doing that to, I guess, for criminal reasons. It was more because he wasn't in the correct mindset because of the psychological issues that were going on at the time and that were present. So that impacts his judgment and how he behaves, right? Anything else? It says maybe he was walking back in the rain. Did it ever rain much? Not sure if I know. Well, from the looks of it, at least at the time it didn't rain, but afterwards it did. And his feet started getting wet and he realised the boots were shot and no longer waterproof, and again took them off and ditched them. But it doesn't seem likely either. One thing what I do want to say is, considering that Dylan on the 26th was in Montello, the 27th in Montello, drove all the way back to lose him, and then the next day, 28th, drove in a grain truck to the grain shed. For most part of it, all that journeying was via vehicles, not walking long distances. So he shouldn't really be that tired. He's had time to recover, to recuperate. He's been in Montello, been well fed, right? Even Weezer at the Cowboy Barn Grill recorded with a past story saying that Dylan would eat a lot for his size. You know, he's not that big, but he would eat a lot of food. So, you know, kind of looking after himself, filling himself up for the long task ahead. And, you know, all that distance with the vehicles, you know, it's not exactly a hardship in that timing, at least, okay? So his legs, his feet shouldn't be that battered or worn in that space of time, unless it was a pre-existing injury from custom farming elsewhere in between. You know what I'm saying? Anything else? It's a puzzle for sure. I'd say almost all info we have comes from the mother, not from LE, although some basics come from the news LE. Yeah, I'd say so. I'd suggest if you watch anything, you watch the links that show the mom's statements, interviews to help make sense of more, although her summary here pretty much covers it very well. The mother seems satisfied. The guy that asked for the ride didn't do anything to Dylan, and I think she even talked with him. Chase Venstra, yeah. The guy who claimed Dylan was abducted and claimed he was in town the following day after the first one in town really has wonder about. If lying about both things, who he is covering for, himself or someone else, or is he just trying to send the investigation in the wrong direction for whatever unknown reason? That's to do with Kurt Wadsworth. The fired employee one, Don Haley, can't take off their radar at this point, in my opinion. Yeah. And ever since, he's kind of gone off the radar in terms of locations, either in Idaho, Oakley, or from what a couple of people saying recently, like Linda hammering it in, like she hammers those bottles, no joke. Wyoming, okay? So we got Utah, and we got Wyoming. Sorry, I turned into a little spring then, apologies. It says, then there was that other guy who also lived right there. It could sounded like Brenner. I forgot the name, James Brenner, who Ellie talked to, etc. And the family did, and he actually had an outstanding warrant, yeah, from the past 2021. Not a warrant relating to Dylan, but we do have then another person who had committed a crime previously and did enough to have a warrant issued, yeah. So there are a few possibilities. Here are a few to wonder about, and then it could possibly have been a stranger or someone at the bar, or that he knew from the bar. So far, there isn't any reason to lean in on any one direction, but I would say the one giving the false information is the most questionable, suspicious at this point. Who would you say in the case overall is giving the most false information, causing the most trouble, disturbance? Would you say Candice Cooley? Would you say Kurt Wadsworth? Would you say the bracket of a YouTuber, insert name down below? You know, let's do a poll like that right now and feel free to vote, okay? A few more points. Regina says, though Dylan hadn't mentioned that he was in any way familiar with the man, I think it's possible that he could have been. As for where Dylan encountered the man, I'm not sure where that was in relation to his farm. Area-wise, well, more to do with Montello, Nevada, near Tacoma Road, right? Not losing. There's an interview in which Dylan's mother names the road. I never looked it up, Tacoma Road, but my impression is that it was much closer to Montello than Dylan's farm, correct? And though Dylan told his mother he hadn't given the man a ride, he did. Yeah, that was just to reduce the resistance at the time because he knows what the mother would think. He took him to Montello. Another note. By the way, Dylan told the story. The mother's impression is that Dylan thought it was funny, nothing more. The man is seen on video at almost 10 p.m, May 28th, Ogden, about 2.5 hours away. Public place, Little Caesars Pizza, where my analysis, my dodgy one, begun. That's the very first place we looked at, right? And where it all branched off. You know exactly what I mean, again. So, the bit where it says Dylan told the story is that Dylan thought it was funny and nothing more. Dylan found it funny, supposedly, that he came across a stranger bruised and bloodied, right? If that was the case with Dylan, okay, he might have a kind of good sense of humour, or he's a bit light-hearted, or he's got a bit of resilience, or it could be a nervous laughter, because that's another reaction people give off. But if he wasn't taking it serious, do you think Dylan might have got in trouble in the past and also leading up to his disappearance because he didn't take a situation serious when someone may have threatened him or when someone confronted him and Dylan was like, yeah, whatever, and then the other person took it as a form of disrespect and retaliated back and took Dylan out? You know, whereas we praise Dylan for his farm work, his work ethic, and maybe his quiet behaviour as well, getting on with things, is there a possibility that because of Dylan's naivety, Dylan's lightheartedness, not taking things as serious at times, aside from the farming, could that have impacted him, made the situation worse if it was a confrontation with someone? Feel free to leave your thoughts down below. A few more points, okay. Who's this by? It's continuation. About the gate, I said it was locked, but I was mistaken. It was closed, not locked. I'm so sorry about that misinformation. Right. The gate info comes from Dylan's father in Heavy D's video, in which he said they, apparently D and or J, said that Dylan never shut the gate, but since it was shut, that meant that Dylan must have left the property via the road, which again is not something Dylan would have done. That is, he wouldn't have taken the road back to his farm, he would have cut across the desert. Well, from what I know at least, that at 6:51 a.m. on the 28th, Dylan was going to go to the farm, but he was stopped by the roadblock of the gate being locked. And it was locked because of Brenner, right? And he must have got through in order to be able to park the grain truck. I guess that Dylan closed the gate on him when he was going through, unless someone else did that later. That's the only other little point which could be reconfirmed, right? My question about this gate's circumstances: when was it first observed that the gate was shut? I mean, if it's presumed that Dylan shut the gate, then surely this info is critical to the timeline. Info from the people who were in the area that day and later contacted the mother is that it started raining at 5:30 to 6 a.m, led up, but hadn't rained hard until late afternoon. This weather info is also from the Heavy D video and is better described by the mother. Okay. Yep. I mean, wait. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. I mean, the problem is, yeah. What day are they talking about there? Are they talking about the 28th or the 27th? I hope they're not talking about the 27th. Must be the 28th because they're responding back to Saturday. Yeah, because of the footprints, because there's Sunday they were saying that, well, because of the rain, then you would have seen footprints in the ground from people trying to search for Dylan, which wasn't the case. Right, so they're saying that May 28th from 5:30 to 6 a.m, it rained. Yeah, okay. Okay, so not that long. Just wanted to be sure there, because if they were saying something like 5:30 p.m. to 6 a.m, then that's how I was reading it at first, and I was thinking, wait, what are you talking about from the day before? Then I got all confused. So, forget that. May 28th, raining, early hours of the morning. Whoa. If that's the case, wait, if that's the 28th and it rained at 5:30 to 6, and Dylan made that call to Karen, grandmother, at 6:51. Okay. It stopped raining by then, but it was raining beforehand. So what the hell was Dylan doing with the grain truck? Wouldn't it have already got wet? If Dylan was in his trailer, right, and then what time does he exactly wake up? Does he wake up at 5? It doesn't really matter what time Dylan wakes up at, really, because by the time he gets down to or approaches the grain shed, first reaching the roadblock of the locked gate, it's 6:51, the call's made, right? So it's almost like nearly an hour, right, after it stopped raining. So all that time beforehand, what was Dylan doing with the grain truck if it was supposedly raining between 5:30 to 6 a.m. on the 28th? That would mean that Dylan's grain truck would have got wet, would have been exposed to the environment, because Dylan would have been in his trailer, woke up at a certain point and thought, oh, better get my grain truck to the grain shed. But isn't it already wet, though, if it was parked up outside and it was raining in the early hours? Wouldn't it have been already messed up and screwed? Well, you can talk about that down below, right? Because that's the one bit I didn't really look too heavy in terms of the exact timing of the rainfall, so I can't lock in on that at the moment. Regina says, the only reason, and that's the only one I can think of, is that he took them off because they were wet. Kimster says, I have to wonder if they had a gun pointed at him and told him to take the boots off himself, being a mum of boys. I can tell you that taking boots off is not an easy task, and at times, so maybe they wanted him to have his boots off so they were at a further advantage. I mean, Brenner with his guns and his missing chrome-plated gun, right, could have been used. We're nearly there. Regina says, my thought that the boots were wet, while I think it's a reason he could have taken them off himself, there'd still be the question as to when. Along that line, I'd expect that he'd use and have a boot dryer. Must have for anyone who works outdoors. Grandma says, I think that is most likely scenario. Get him barefoot to keep control of him. He can't run fast or easily. Kick them with a booted foot if he was fighting back. Even though it just seems any facts or thought in this case just brings more questions. For instance, Dylan's gun is missing, so how did the perp get that? Dylan's gun from him or did he? Dylan's gun was eventually returned back, okay? But yeah, who stole it in the first place and how? Though that's gone down to the farm. Grandma says, I thought of wet or feet, boots hurting, took them off. Why though? Wouldn't he carry the boots home? I guess if already wet, he may figure them worthless, or maybe he was carrying more and just didn't or couldn't carry the boots home. I have to wonder, I mean, I get that the mum and dad know him well, as we all do with our kids, or many do, but they can't be always 100% sure of his habits, can they? Because I think most comes from like that he would never close the gate, never put the truck in four-wheel drive, and only ever wore his boots, never would do this or that. I get it, and in most cases they're probably right, but it isn't like they were living with him there, right? I mean, it sounds like he gave that guy a ride, but told his family he did not, so it's possible it could be wrong about a few things. That's right. Well, some people might criticise the parents of Dylan Rounds, Candice Cooley, Justin, one or the other, or both. You could also say that, how well do the parents really know Dylan? You know, if you want to tie in with Dylan getting away from them for whatever reason, or Dylan having his own secret thoughts, ideas, likes, dislikes, his own little routine and mindset, it could differentiate from what Candice Cooley and Justin know him by, right? Maybe Dylan adapted and changed his ways when he did get away, when he branched out, changed his routines. You never know. And then Candice Cooley's just assuming from the past, holding on from the past. Yeah, that could be another poll in itself. How well do you think the parents know the son, Dylan? A lot? A little bit? Not at all? What do you think? Carries on saying, my point is maybe he had recently got a new pair of the same boots and an old pair was close to giving out and had the old pair on because the new pair weren't broken in yet, or oiled or something, or maybe broken into where he thought he could wear them for a 5-mile walk. So leaving the boots behind, if they got wet, his feet soaked, wasn't the end of the world for him. So the heavier rain was later afternoon. His last ping, we think, was later afternoon. Yep, and maybe his boots got wet, his feet soaked with wearing them. Does this sound likely? And if so, what then happened from there? They don't get any flash flooding in this area, do they? Well, I believe so. Like ditches and gullies filling up and flowing during a big rain, areas otherwise normally dry and desert. I know such happens occasionally in places like Arizona with the desert. Arizona desert, Shack Lady mentioning that a body was found there in recent time, and some others. No, there is flash flooding, or there's some kind of flooding with time with the bloody washes, with all that water, going down, right? Oh my God, more? Fucking grandma keeps talking on and on. Talks more than Indiana does. What a big gob. Is that supposed to be the man's alibi? He's 2.5 miles away. I don't see how that covers him then, because there is no time of disappearance for Dylan, really, is there? That's to do with Chase Venstra, his alibi. Countering it. Guess who says, or did he have an extra pair? His mum said he always wore the same kind. Replace them with the same thing. How are we positive these aren't an older pair, or a new pair he took off and put his older pair? Agreed with there is no good explanation for them being there at all unless he was just frustrated with them for some reason. Also, that is another good reason. I absolutely hate wearing wet shoes or socks for any length of time. I've worn wet shoes for hours upon hours and it was okay. It felt like I was floating. A few weird sounds made. Squelch, squelch, squelch. I sound like a frog. But yeah. Guess who? That's exactly where my mind goes, is that as parents we do not know our kids' daily habits. Once they move out, they're busy finding out what's best for them, as they should. Why wouldn't he take his daily truck and drive it over to the grain truck rather than walk through the desert? Every farmer I know does that. If their equipment is at a different location than their residence, they drive over to if it's very far. If he didn't have a daily truck, I would understand, but it isn't being said that he does have daily truck. Well, he's got the burgundy pickup truck, the Ford F-150. That is the one. Regina finishes it off saying, "The thing is, no matter how one looks for it, there's no logical explanation that these boots were found where they were. Surely it's the single most bizarre aspect of his disappearance." Yeah, I'd say to an extent, I can agree with that, yeah.
Okay, so it felt a little bit more heavy, that some of the bloody responses by Grandma Bear, the bloody paragraphs she writes, and just the language, like Joy Perry almost, it gives you a bit of a headache, but you know, it is what it is. We saw the progression with time, people questioning things, some people being dead on the mark from the early stages, right? I know Josephina will come on in and say, "Told you so from the beginning." Joseph, stop clicking your fucking fingers, just enjoy your birthday or your long-lasting after the day's birthday thing, depending on how long it goes on for. My God, it can stretch on long, isn't it, Joseph? That's what he said. What? I don't know. But one important thing we're able to demonstrate this time successfully, at least from my opinion, okay, kind of like with the Kenny Veach case and past articles, this time, for the first time, I was able to look back at the forum page, one of them, and to be able to correct certain bits of information in bulk, which I've not really been able to do quite to that extent before, but we have done tonight, so we have demonstrated that. We have also highlighted and documented the interesting, slightly strange changes in behaviour by some within the case, how they appeared one way and then the other all of a sudden, how they become slightly hypocrites too, you know? Interesting. But you know, when you do cover mystery cases or true crime, it can affect people in different ways. Whether it be people directly on the inside, the families, the friends, victims, or the people trying to solve it. Some people get headaches. The shack lady needs a sugar daddy all of a sudden to cope with it all. And Mr. X putting on the mask the wrong way the following day, so you can't see where he's going. And even Mr. SpongeBob Soggy Pants forgetting what day it is or what time it is. Is it lunchtime? Is it breakfast? Is it party time? I don't know. Is it time to ring the bell and go to Saddle Sore Bar? Maybe. Are your legs positioned? Are you already open? Well, from the looks of it, some of the people in the chat can't keep their legs shut. Oh shit, sorry, that sounds like a pancakes line, that. I hope I'm not transitioning into that. No. I've still got a heart rate. Yeah, I'm okay. And supposedly, I think in a comment or a post, Stoney said she's a nurse or a special nurse. Brilliant. That's exactly what we need. Because if things ever get too dodgy here, or for whatever reason, Raf OnlyFans pops up, you know, people getting heart attacks, people, you know, heart palpitations, Cleo passing out, Stoney can get her stethoscope out and inspect people. You know, it's all forming, okay? It's all collecting together. That's great. Well done, Stoney. Okay. So, aside from all that, I think we'll conclude it there. Hopefully this video was of use or simply of interest to understand what's been going on in recent time, and also to set the record straight with my channel too, so there's no misunderstandings there in advance when new people come along, okay? There most likely will be further resistance, most likely will be more whining and complaining with time. It could lead to more consequences, but you know, I'm just simply covering it as we go along, just like with everything and anyone else, okay? So that's it for now. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye and good night for now. Make sure you're tucked in tight, just like how, oh fuck, I messed it up. Campos Tacos, filling her tacos left, right, and center with sour cream. My God, better not be sour. It needs to be fresh. Come on. Make sure you're not past the sell-by date, okay? Bye.